7.5. Today we're going to be talking about slope. So the last few lessons we were talking about the rate of change and talking about the change in y over the change in x and things like that. So basically the slope and the rate of change is pretty much the same thing. So we're talking about, when we talk about slope, we're talking about the steepness of a line. And anytime slope is represented in equations and things like that, it's represented by the letter m. So anytime you see an equation with an m in it, it's talking about slope. So slope, you can find it several different ways. One way is just by finding the rise over the run. So the rise is talking about the vertical change. So in order to get from one point to the other, we're talking about, do we have to go up or down? That is going to be our vertical change. And then how much do we have to go left or right? That will be the horizontal change. Now anytime you go down to get to another point, that's going to be a negative value. And anytime you go left, that's going to be a negative value. So if you're going up, it's positive, down is negative, left is negative, right is positive. So just kind of think of going up and going to the right, they're both positive actions. Another way that you can find the slope is if you're given 2 points, you can find, look at your y values and find the difference between them and put that over the difference in the x values. So let's go ahead and look at a few examples for each, or an example for each. So for this, if you're going to find it by thinking of rise over run, if you had a question that said something about find the slope of a line or of a rail or of a something like that, a ramp, then they'll be talking about if it has a rise of 4 units and a run of 8 units, then the rise over run, so we'll look for our rise, which is 4, put that in the numerator, and then it said a run of 8, so that will be in the denominator, and then you simplify it. So divide out and it'll be 1 over 2 or 1/2. That is going to be our slope. Now, if we're looking for terms like vertical and horizontal change, like if it says a vertical change of 5 and a horizontal change of 7, you would have 5 in the numerator because that's the vertical change, and then we have the 7 in the denominator because that's the horizontal change. So 5 over 7 would be our slope. Now, in this last example, it gets a little more confusing because we're talking about 2 points. So if it says we have a point -1, -2, and then 3, 5, and we're going to go ahead and find the difference in the y values and put that on top, and then find the difference of the x values and put it on the bottom. So basically, if we looked at our 2 y values, so always look at the y values first. I know it gets a little bit confusing because the y values are second, so why would we look at the y values second? Or why would we look at it first? But in this case, we're talking about the vertical change. And if you're thinking about an axis or a coordinate plane, the vertical line, all of the vertical lines, or how much you go up or down, that is all talking about the y value. And however much you go right or left, that's talking about our x values. So that's why we want to look at our y's first, because we're talking about vertical change over horizontal change. So now we need to go ahead and find the difference between these two terms. So from -2 to +5, how much did we go up by? In this case, since we went from a negative to a positive, we're increasing. And in this case, we're increasing by 7. So a +7 is in the numerator. And then in the denominator, let's look at our x values. So to go from -1 to +3, we're going up. And how much are we going up? We're going up by 4. So that means a +4 will be in the denominator, and you'll have 7 over 4. You can also think of it as 5 minus -2, and then 3 minus -1. And then you can go ahead and change the minus and negative to plus positive. So 5 plus 2 gives you 7. 3 plus 1 gives you 4. So there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But my suggestion is to go through each problem, find the vertical change, put it on top right away, then find the horizontal change, and then put it on the bottom. So you want to come up with a routine so you're not mixing up your x's and y's or things like that. So you want to make sure to keep your work very neat and organized and kind of come into a routine. All right, let's go ahead and do some problems. Let's go ahead and look at example number 1. It says, what is the slope of a wooden ramp that rises 2 inches for every horizontal change of 24 inches? All right, so what I notice here is that I have 2 inches and I have 24 inches. So the first thing you want to check is to make sure that the units are the same. And in this case, they're both talking about inches, so we don't have to change our units at all. So we have 2 inches and 24 inches. So now we need to go ahead and make a ratio. And our ratio is going to be rise, which is the vertical change, over the run, which is the horizontal. So let's go ahead and look at our terms. So our 2 is actually the rise, so it says that rise is 2 inches. So that's going to be on the top. Rise is 2, inches, and then it says horizontal change of 24 inches. So since the run or the horizontal change is in the bottom, we'll put 24 in the bottom. But you're not done until you've completely simplified. So let's go ahead and divide out a 2 for both the numerator and the denominator, and we're going to have 1/12. That is going to be your slope of example number 1. All right, let's look at example number 2. Now in this case, we have a graph. So the line is already graphed for us, and it's labeled 2 points. So we need to go ahead, use those 2 points, and find the change in y over the change in x. So first of all, we look at our y values first. So even though they're second in the ordered pair, we're going to look at those first. So from 2 to 3, are we going up or down? In this case, we're going down, and we're going down by 5. So since we're going down, I'm making it negative. So to go from -2 to -5, are we going up or down? We're going down, and we're going down by 3. Sorry, 3. Now one thing I noticed is that we have a negative over a negative, so I'm not completely simplified yet. Even though my terms cannot simplify, our signs can simplify. Anytime you have negative over a negative, it changes it to a positive. So 5/3 is our slope. You can also find it by looking at the fact that you're going down 5 units and you're going left 3 units. So that's going to be down, which is negative, left, which is negative. So -5 over -3 simplifies down to 5/3. All right, let's look at number 3. This one's just like the one we just did, except right away, if you look at the graph, you can see that the slope is going to be negative because our graph is going down. In this case, our graph is going up, so that's how our slope ended up being positive. In this case, we're going down. So we know that it's going to be negative, so I'm just going to put a negative right there all at the beginning because we know it's going to be there. So let's go ahead and look at our y values first. I know that they're second in the ordered pair, but they're going to come first when we're talking about slope because we're talking about our vertical change. So to go from 0 to -4, we're going down by 4, so -4 over. In this case, when we're looking at our x values, we're going from 0 to 2, and we're going up by 2. So it's -4 over 2. Except we're not done because it is not simplified. So let's go ahead and divide out. Divide out a 2, divide out a 2, and basically we're going to just end up with -2. Because we'll get, divide out and get -2 over 1, and then that 1 can go away. So it's just -2. Alright, let's go ahead and look at number 4. Now, even though we do not, the one drawback when you're just given ordered pairs is the fact that you don't have a graph to see right away if it's going to be positive or negative. So that means you're going to have to be very careful when it comes to solving because you don't want to mess up your sign because that means it's wrong if the sign's wrong. So, first things first, let's look at our y values. I know they're second in the ordered pairs, but we're going to look at them first because we're talking about the vertical change over horizontal. So let's go ahead and do 3 to 2. So when we go from 3 to 2, do we go up or down? In this case, we're going down. So we're going down by 1, so it's going to be -1 over. So to go from -4 to +1, we're going to have to go up, and we're going to go up by 5. So it's going to be -1/5. Can't simplify anything else. Okay, let's look at number 5. We have 2 points. We have -1, 7, and 5, 7. So let's go ahead and find our change. So to go from 7 to 7, do we have to go up any at all? In this case, no. So we're going to have a 0 over -1 to 5. So in order to get from -1 to 5, we have to go up. We have to go up by 6. So it'll be 0 over 6. However, this is not the most simplified answer. So if you did 0 divided by 6 in your calculator, you would see that it comes out to 0. So that means our slope is 0. So anytime you run into the fact that your y values are the same, and you get the slope of 0, that just means that you're going to have a horizontal line. Because both of these points go up to 7 on the y-axis, and they'll be connected and make a horizontal line. So if you get a 0 slope, you have a horizontal line, or if you see a horizontal line, you don't even have to do the math. You can just know right away that your slope is 0. Now let's go ahead and find the slope of this point, 2, 4, and 2, -1. So let's go ahead and find the change in y's first. That's our vertical change. So from 4 to -1, we're going to have to go down 5. So it's going to be -5 over. So to go from 2 to 2, do we have to go up or down any? No. So that means it's going to be a 0 in the bottom. So in this case, -5 over 0. I've seen this before. If you have -5 over 0, a lot of people just say it's -5. Or they just say it's 0. But neither of those two are correct. You can always check yourself if you want to enter it into your calculator. If you enter in -5 divided by 0, you're going to get undefined. It's going to say something like error, and that's because it can't happen. So that means that if we're going to do -5 divided by 0, it's going to be undefined. And you can represent undefined by writing out undefined, or you can do 0 with a slash through it, which means no solution. Alright, so those are the questions. So if you have any questions on this lesson, go back, rewatch the video again, watch the examples again, make sure you've written them all down, and we're going to go ahead and do some on your own questions. Bring your questions to class if you still have some, if you watched it again. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started.
Alright, you have 5 problems to do for me. Number 1, it says, in a stairway, the slope of the handrail is the ratio of the riser to the tread. If the tread is 12 inches long and the riser is 8 inches long, find the slope. So I want to go ahead and drew a picture for you so you knew what it was talking about when it said the tread and the riser. So go ahead and find the ratio between the riser to the tread, and then go ahead and simplify. Numbers 2 and 3, you're going to look at a graph, use those 2 points and find the slope. In numbers 4 and 5, you're given 2 points each, and you need to go ahead and find the slope between those. Alright, good luck. We'll see what you get tomorrow.